We're waiting. There's the switch.
Here we
Good.
are.
Automatic. That's wonderful.
All
we
our
are
people.
here. It's Thursday at 2:00, which means it's the MiamiHal Real Estate Show. Jav Gonzalez, another absolutely spectacular Remax Advanced Realty realtor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank
and
you
every
much.
single week we sit down and talk to you, the audience, about what you want to hear about the current market here in South Florida. We always have a great guest. This time it's you, Jav.
There I am. Here I am. Welcome.
Let's flip the roles.
Okay. What's the roles?
Okay. You're running the show today.
I'm running the show today.
I see you've got some numbers that we're going to go over.
We have complete chaos if I'm running this show, just so you know.
And then after the chaos, you can then interview me about what you think people should know, and I'll give you my version, and then you can refute it and tell me how it should be different.
This is very, very interesting. So one of the things, and we talked about, if the Miami Herald actually has a very, very good article today that Andres and Rebecca wrote, and it's really about the taxable income or the taxable real estate and how high it's gone in the last year. So what's ended up happening is, if you take a look at the article, it'll tell you that the numbers are up about 10%, and this is taxable. This isn't, the real, you and I know that the taxable income on these things doesn't show really the true value. But the current taxable, that is the preliminaries, out there at around, I think, $337 billion.
What?
For Miami-Dade County.
And I assume that's up significantly from the year prior and the year prior.
About 10%, which
10%.
is the highest increase, I think, in like 15 years.
And that's
since actually the crash. That's taxable.
So what we're really understanding is, even though that the taxable assessed value is not true market value,
no, at all.
Normally you see that rise to maybe 3%. And we had a 10% in 1 year increase.
Yeah, it's about the highest increase since 2007, since the market.
You know how I know your numbers are accurate? Because there's a cheat sheet right underneath that camera.
I wrote them right
and
there.
It says 337.1 billion. That's right, billion, right?
Yeah, billion. Okay. And it went up like $34 billion. So that's it's insane. And then the other thing too is that in the city of Miami, it's up 66. It's $66 billion, approximately, give or take. And then one of the things they also reference, which is actually interesting, and brings us back to a little bit of the government aspect, is that the Miami DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, they're up $22 billion. So, and overall, it's just the numbers are insane. One of the ones that doesn't show like a huge increase, which is surprising, is Gables. Gables only went up 8%. And then you have some other areas that are going up 15%.
8% is still healthy.
Well, you got some other areas that are going up 15%. So, and again, it's to stress that this is just the taxable value of all these properties. And it involves commercial also. We're not just talking residential.
Now, I don't know if you have this in your head. You said other areas are going up maybe even 15%. Are those the areas that had lower priced homes? Typically?
Yeah, lower price. And not only that, but also some, what we would be called gentrified areas, and people, that are on the lower scale pushing.
So we're seeing a compression of the market where there really is no low price affordable homes, which is one of the things you often come onto this show and talk about, is the affordability and making sure that this environment is hospitable for people of all incomes. And it's
not gonna. It continues, and you listen to some of the politicians that are out there, and some of the, I know you're a fan of Calva, which I'm not, but you hear some of the things that they say that, we're being successful in driving businesses here, we're bringing these businesses here, and then at the same time they're telling you about affordable housing. By bringing all of these businesses, by doing all of these things, and it's great. The rising tides raise all boats, is a saying.
Right.
But again, at the end of the day, what you're doing is, by being successful in the business sector, you're putting so much pressure on the living pressure on the residential side, that it's almost it's contradictory. And that's one of my arguments when I ran for commissioner, is like, guys, if I'm going to drive this boat here, this is going to suffer, simply because other people are going to be able to price you out.
Yeah.
So that's, and then those numbers are coming out are going to validate that, One of the things that was in the article, which actually was a good point, and you had him as a guest, Pete Garcia,
right,
the county appraiser, is that he's stressing that we reduce the tax rate, the millage, so that we do not continue to put upward pressure on residents that can't afford.
Do you agree in that position?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because you've already, again, we've talked about this in other shows. Government has an insatiable appetite for real estate taxes. It's how they get their money. It's how they become productive. It's how they can run, what
they balance a budget because they have
can't
more
even,
budget.
I wish they could balance a budget, but they're never going to balance.
I understand that, but
they're never. You could give them the $37 billion or $337 billion, and they will spend it up to the hilt and still have to bond out for basic services. So that's one of the, again, we've talked about this before. Think about this real estate tax that's coming in. That should be your operating budget. That should be what you can do to cover everything. Well, it doesn't, because you still have to bond to be able to continue. So imagine that you have a condominium, you have your operating budget. Well, this is that $337 billion. And again, that gets split, in several different ways.
Sure.
But even that isn't enough to be able to generate and be able to, do special projects. We talked about septic tanks months ago or years ago or whatever. Forget now. But we talked that was a $5 billion project, and they will have to bond out for that. They can't do it this way. So it is very, very interesting. Hopefully they will cut, the millage rate. We will see some protection on that, because again, it's going to continue to go crazy. And it'll continue. It's not.
And our
it's not
aging population just cannot shoulder that.
No. And again, that's why we have Save Our Homes.
Yeah.
And again, this $337 billion is, it does include commercial, which can be taxed at a maximum of 10%. All investment properties can be taxed at a max of 10. So it's just it was a very, very good article, and it shows and it reveals really the root of what we as agents are seeing on the day to day. It's very simple to say, oh, the property went up to $1 million. Well, somebody's going to pay taxes on that $1 million.
That's true.
And these are the numbers that you're seeing. And then you start to look at it and say, they went up 10%. We've talked about going up that 10, 12%. So it's all relative as to how it goes.
So let's try to bring this down to a more manageable individual level.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the macro version. Let's get down into the micro. We both have clients, buyers and sellers, and the market is changing. Mm-hmm. Now, you and I may see the change a little bit differently, but what guidance do you give either a buyer or seller today as to what they should be doing tomorrow in the market?
I still see, and we talked about it again, it's the competitiveness, that competition is what's really being affected. You don't have as many people buying the same type of properties. You're starting to see the property stay on the market just a tiny bit longer.
Yes.
And especially in certain segments. So I think, is the market changing? Yes, I do believe it is moving a little bit, but still there's still enough demand, and we will always have a limited inventory, because we are a peninsula. We are between, look at right now. So right now, the Miami-Dade County is trying to get an expansion of the UBL, the urban boundary line. And they are having troubles with it. It's going to push into the Everglades. They've also started to go, south to Homestead, in the Homestead Air Force Base. And then they're trying to do a development there. It was actually kind of funny, because they had a big meeting, and one of the big developers was there, said he was against the project, even though he is like one of the top investors in the area. But again, we're limited as to where we can build, and that's just our reality. And I think that demand is really outpacing any kind of, we talked about it before. We can't call China and say, hey, send us over 1 million homes.
I'll tell you something that I found really striking. I'm watching the same types of shows that I'm sure a lot of our audience is watching, about what's going on with the economy. Mm-hmm. And something that CNBC put out, which ultimately turned into an article that'll be in the next issue of the Pinecrest Tribune coming out this Monday, is about the affordability of a particular home. So they chose a $300,000 home and basically tracked what that home would produce in the way of a mortgage payment each month, starting in March of 2019, then March of 2020, 2021, and 2022. And so the graph is pretty simple. Hey, here's the home that an average person might want to purchase. It wasn't necessarily here in South Florida. And it said the payment was let's call it $1,200
Right.
for the 2019 payment. And then in 2000, it was actually up maybe $20. So negligible.
Right.
In 2021, it actually went down because the interest rates
Right.
were so low.
Because of COVID.
Even though the cost of
Mhm.
that $300,000 home had broken over $400,000, yet with the interest rate, it was still manageable. In fact, better than the original purchase in 2019. And then, presumably, in the last 3 months, January, February, and then March of 2022, the payment went to almost $1,900. So we've got a $700 increase. You got some business ringing over there. I'll keep talking to the audience. Ultimately, what it showed was this $300,000 home just kind of escalated out of control for the mortgage payment.
Right.
And that's what is worrying me, because I have buyers that have been looking for a long time, and several of them have kind of dropped off the face of the earth. And it's not because I can't find them things to do or they don't like what I'm doing for them. It's that they can't afford it anymore. And it's just turned since the beginning of this year.
And add the insurance.
Yeah.
Add our insurance. Add our insurance.
There's several ways to look at this. Our insurance is insane. And I know there's a number of things in the legislature that are trying to address this, but it's not addressing it in the right way.
It ain't going to happen.
I understand, but they're also looking at it because of the after effects of Surfside. And everybody's worried about, in particular, the condos, and whether or not the boards deferring a number of things has caused serious safety concerns for people living in condos. And the answer is
obviously.
But there's no money.
So I have a solution for that. And I've been arguing this for about 30 years.
Well, talk to everybody, because if you've got a great
So
idea.
No, there's this.
What's the argument?
So the argument is don't insure land value.
Okay.
Especially in South Florida. So I live in Coconut Grove.
Right.
My land is worth more than my house. Period.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if the house gets torn down. You can wreck my house, tear it all apart, put it down. My dirt is worth more than anything that I'm going to be able to put on.
I've been at your house. It's quite nice.
Thank you.
And the dirt's worth more.
And the dirt's worth more.
Okay.
So, and again, that's all through South Florida.
So what do you insure?
So you insure the structure, what it costs to build the structure, but not the dirt. But what happens is when you have a mortgage, it includes everything.
Right.
And I've argued this forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and it's not going to get me anywhere. But the dirt. So let's say you have a mortgage.
Understood.
Okay. So you have
we have a hurricane come through. Your argument's going to be that the only thing that gets destroyed is the property, not the land underneath.
But here's the thing. So if you own the property free and clear, you don't need insurance.
Right.
Period. Okay. You self-insure, and it probably makes sense because your structure, you would have to have a category 17 to be destroyed. Plus the fact your insurance, you have 5% is a deductible. So if you wipe out your roof, you're going to pay for your roof anyway.
That's true.
Right. So that's true. So then what happens if you have $200,000 on your mortgage, but your property, the land is worth $800,000. So why should you be carrying insurance?
Insurance for that amount.
Because the bank requires it, because they say, well, we can't, pay. Well, the dirt, we'll sell the dirt and I'll make $600,000 and you get your $200,000 and we're all happy. And I don't have to pay $15,000 a month or a year for hurricane insurance. That's my biggest, that's been my complaint for 30 years and it just doesn't happen.
Okay.
So there it is.
Let's get back to, again,
sorry. We have a storm, and we have a storm coming.
And we have a storm coming. That's true.
So
this weekend's going to be a wash.
Welcome to June.
That's right. June
South
1st,
Florida.
June 1st, and that storm hit out in the Pacific.
Yeah. And it's coming across. It's coming across. So all of you New Yorkers and folks from the Northeast, get ready. Welcome to South Florida. Not only our heat, our mosquitoes, but here comes summer.
Oh, it's not that bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Until it actually happens.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The scare, when I first moved down into the area many years ago now, yes, it was quite scary to hear about a hurricane coming. But for the most part, unless we get a direct hit, I really feel like we're far better prepared than we ever have been. Communications is better.
Structurally,
road to recovery is going to be,
all of the new
building
codes.
Everything's going to be.
Which also puts pricing higher for our market as opposed to, I was in Arizona and you see some of the stuff that's being built and it's like, cookie cutter wood. It's like, you can't do that here. So just it's just a different animal, and it will always be a different animal here in South Florida, and it makes it difficult.
So what's the activity been for you as a realtor? Are you busy right now?
I think we took a pause for whatever reason in May because of schools and everything like that. I think there was a slight lull. Clients are still out there. We have new listings coming up, which has been positive.
Right.
So like this weekend, I have some showings on a buyer side, which is kind of rare, but the properties are still available. The properties are available to show. And I think those are the things that like I said, I just see the competition. I'm not competing against 5,000 people now. I may be competing against one or two. And then that one or two.
Yeah, I agree.
And then that one or two, you may not like the house. Like I had a listing that we put up. It was 4 people. We brought it in. It hasn't hit the market yet. So we put it out there and we showed it to 4 individuals. Those 4 individuals, hey, listen, 3 of them didn't like it. One of them did. And then you get the deal.
I'm going to revisit something we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And I love the fact of what you just said, because I said, look, if you're in a great buyer's market, you go out and show property to a buyer, you find a house, and you're the only one that puts an offer in. Right there, you've got a 50-50 shot at closing because it's just you and the seller deciding whether or not you can come to terms, right? 50-50 shot. It was several weeks ago, less than 1% chance that you could close. And the reason was there's multiple people making offers. And so, it's really easy to kind of do the math and understand your chances as a buyer go to almost zero when you're in that type of market. And now I'm hearing from you, and I'm certainly experiencing it. And I talk to other brokers and agents as well. It is really a lot quieter on the buyer side. And that's going to create a better environment, frankly, for buyers and sellers.
I think so too, because I think, and we've talked about it some of the other shows, sellers become overwhelmed when you hit them with 15 different offers and you're trying to figure out which one is the best offer. And, you got a backup offer and you got this. And I think right now it's just becoming more, how should I say, civilized in it is more of the norm.
I'll call it sanity.
Sanity. Yeah. Sanity is good.
Insanity. And now that sellers are not driving the market and basically dictating anything as a whim, as a term, now we've got some sanity returning to the market.
And we're still seeing price increases. I saw a property that was on the market.
In what price strata? Because
under a mil.
Okay.
Under a mil, what we've seen, especially in certain areas, Palmetto Bay is showing that. So Palmetto Bay, one listing came in at 950, probably went under contract, fell apart, but it went under contract. That's the other thing too, is I think sellers are starting to realize that yes, you got this offer that was really exciting. Maybe, somebody overpaid, but then they can't finish the offer or can't go through. Then you bump up the price to what that offer was, and then you're not going to get that offer again.
It just occurred to me for quite a while that the buyers had to really push their offers into territory that was uncomfortable for them. And a certain percentage of those buyers that were desperate enough, they would put in cash offers, even though behind the scenes they were going to get financing.
Sure. And we talked about that last 2 weeks ago.
And so that, I think, is going to start to subside.
I think also the other thing too is and I hope that other agents start to realize that the market isn't what it was, so that you don't push your clients into an uncomfortable position. Because I've seen that with my listings. I'll get an offer and I'm looking at them saying, you know what, this offer doesn't make any sense. You may want to make the deal or try to push a deal, but I know that between now and the next 2 or 3 days, this deal is going to go bad, simply because your buyer really doesn't want to be there. You may want your buyer to be there to get the deal.
Right.
But the buyer isn't comfortable in that deal.
Yeah. And that's another way to say things were insane. When one of the parties is significantly uncomfortable with the contract that they have, there's insanity there. Yes, a contract is supposed to be a compromise. And there's an older saying in more normal times where, hey, when both the buyer and seller have a little bit of I lost the phrase, are a little bit are a little hurt by the terms, then everybody's going to be happy at the end. But uncomfortable and significantly uncomfortable were things that I was feeling every day doing real estate.
I let my buyers actually stew on the deal for a few days to make sure that they're comfortable within the transaction.
When
Because
you say you let them stew, is that during the inspection period or
no,
prior
just
to getting a contract put together?
prior to, I'll even sit on a not an offer, but like, let's say you're a buyer of mine and you come to me and say, I really want this property. And they'll say, you know what, let's give it some thought. Let's sit back, blah, blah, blah. And we get information from the seller and we get everything. But I'm letting that buyer actually just kind of go.
You are very atypical with that, because if I'm working with a buyer and I'm still in the market that I believe we're still at the tail of, you need to act quickly. But you're the type of agent that basically is working with your buyer and saying, you know what?
We want to make sure that
take
you're
a day
okay.
or two. Really? Yeah. Okay. And,
want to
and
make
that
sure
was still successful for you.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Good. I'm not trying to challenge you, but at the same time,
it's not the
early
norm.
bird gets the worm. And let me tell you, you had to be particularly early.
But but going back to the comment, if you had your buyer, your buyer, where your buyer wants to be, the position that your buyer wants to be in from a financial standpoint and from a real estate standpoint. So why are you going to drive that buyer to a place that he's not comfortable to compete? So you're saying, okay, you got to get it. You got to get into this deal. You got to get into this deal. You know that 2 days later, you're not going to be in the deal. So I like to work kind of reverse. Just basically say, hey, listen, this is where it's at. How do you want to be? I used an example of a client of mine. We went to an open house. There were 60 people there. It's like we turned around and walked out. We're not there.
I did that once or twice.
Yeah, we're not there. That's not who we are.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how great the property was. It's just not where we're going to be, because we know the number is going to be driven up, $100,000 or whatever at that time. And I think
insane levels,
insane or non-appraisable levels, because at the end of the day,
synonymous, I believe.
At the end of the day, where your financial limit is, and why. This is the other thing too from agents, and I want to point this out to especially young agents.
Right there.
Okay, young agents, listen. Don't push your buyers into places that they can't go to, because all you're going to do is put yourself in a position where that buyer is going to be. While it's a business for us, it's an emotional and personal purchase for the person that you're representing. And if you put that person, I can guarantee you, if you put that person in a bad position, you know what, that rep gets out there really, really fast.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time. I mean, as listing agents, we see it. We see people come in. It's like, whoa, so again, market shifting a little bit, but we'll see.
So
I'm excited about it though. I like it.
I am too. It gives us something different to do. And the table doesn't feel heavily tilted now. Yeah. Now it's starting to get a little bit more balanced, where ultimately we do our best work. As I hope the audience knows, we are not the ones that make the deals.
No,
we are the ones that get buyers and sellers to the table, have them have a rational conversation, and keep the emotion out of it, so that both the buyers and sellers can get a deal together and keep it.
Unless you're Cuban.
You would know about that. So.
We get very emotional.
Of course. And again, the idea of hiring a professional is that we are able to try to keep you focused on what counts most.
I tease about that, but it's just one of our Latin things, from I've over the years, I've gotten a little bent on some transactions. So
yeah. Well, it happens.
Yeah. It will happen.
You're professional to a point.
Well, I want to kill somebody.
99.9% for you.
Yeah.
But listen, insanity can get to everybody. Yeah. And sometimes, even though you're in normal real estate times, you just have a personality on the other side of a transaction that's pushing your buttons.
It is hard.
It's putting your
and that is what you just said is so spot on, because we go through those simply because you get people that are challenges, or they want to micromanage you, which is my pet peeve. Anybody that tries to micromanage me, it's like, oh, come please, just
you've done this a few times, right?
Yeah, man, let me do my thing.
What's your track record?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And then what's your track record?
Exactly, right. So I'll put my track record up against a lot of people's track records, and it's just and that's just a personality, man. You have to deal with it.
We're going to continue to talk, but as we do, if you have an idea, a thought, a question, social media box is
God knows we need thoughts.
We do. Hav and I sometimes come in here. We're fired up about a particular subject. Today, was more of let's just see where the market is and where the show takes us.
Today's a super mellow
you
day.
can take us there, yeah.
Today's a super mellow day. No, I really am. I
What's
mean,
on the shoes?
no, we got tennies today. We got tennis today.
shoes. Okay.
But no, really, I think the market is going in a way where it's going to be favorable for all parties. But really, just we've got to do something about our real estate taxes and our insurance.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought that point up with that article. I encourage everyone to take a look at it online. It shows a lot of the numbers that are out there. And what it does is, and Andres, who I know personally, I thank you for all of the numbers. Rebecca, I thank you for the numbers because it makes our life easier. It validates what we intuitively know or see.
It's not even intuitive knowing, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And what's funny that you bring that up is, as an agent, I try to make sure I'm knowledgeable of what's going on, the numbers, but we can only see, as individuals, we can only see so much. And then it's the interaction like I have with you and with a number of other agents in our office, and then agents and brokers that I'm friendly with in other offices. And when you have regular conversations with those people and you've got 20 or 30 opinions, of which maybe 95% of them see it one way, then you know what the market's truly doing. And I always kind of test myself. Hey, this is what I'm feeling. And now I go out and survey the rest of the people that I know. It's like, okay, I can validate.
And
this.
you don't have to preload the questions. You can basically say, hey, where are you going? And again, every agent's at a different level. Maybe if you're on the super high end level, you're seeing a different type of market. But if you're in the traditional levels of residential real estate, you can sense it and see it, immediately. And we can usually, see it, 3 months, 4 months ahead.
Exactly.
And that's one of the, and then people will question you because they're reading all of this stuff. Oh, the market's this, the market's that.
And, like,
and
no,
you inside of you're like
that's
saying, yeah,
3 months ago.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not necessarily bashing the media. The media has to look at the data that's coming up after a closing.
After the fact,
So you typically have 45 days between a contract and ultimately the closing. And we're out there with people even looking at places. So there's 2 months right there, approximately 2 months. And again, it takes time for that data to get assembled and analyzed. So we're 3 months ahead of the market. All you got to do is work with a professional.
Easy. And we see a good example as we go to an open house and we start to see that the level of individuals are going down because you're shopping the same area.
Yeah.
So be it Miami Springs, be it Palmetto Bay, be it Pinecrest, be it Coral Gables, be it Coconut Grove, there's nothing in Coconut Grove, by the way.
Nothing.
It's all crap. Sorry, listing agents.
At the moment.
No, I did another run today and it was like, whoa, there's nothing out there that I would even buy. I mean, I wouldn't even look at it. Sorry, folks.
Hey, listen, it is what it is.
Yeah,
it is. It
is what it is. But again, we see that and we start to anticipate the fact. And one of the things too, I think we should look at and tell agents to look at is you look at your pending sales, your active contracts and then your pending sales. And then those active contracts, see how many come back and start to come back. So,
well, I'm going to do a little self-promotion if you don't mind.
All right,
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I have no self-promotion.
Those people in the audience know that I do a lot of video. I really try to be interactive with the audience and with the communities and do good things in the community. Coming up on June the 16th, it's my next home seller seminar. And I've been doing these for quite a number of years. They've recently been online. This next one will also be online. And I'm hoping that we get to face-to-face because it's always better to sit across the table from somebody and really be able to read body language and things. But June 16th, 7 p.m., if you go to my website, MiamiHal.com, on the front page, you'll see an opportunity to sign up for that webcast and that interaction on Zoom. Hav, what are you doing to stay with the people and be
stay
known?
with the people? Sign up or do whatever you do in YouTube for Gotta Have Miami. Our podcast, we try to do one every 2 weeks. We haven't done one every week. We haven't done one in 2 weeks simply because I've been traveling, so we're a little bit behind.
Traveling.
Yeah. So
and
hopefully
it's gotta have
GOTTAJAV Miami.
Not have, but have.
So if you can tune up, sign up, subscribe to it. We talk about a lot of stuff. We talk about politics, but try to intervene what we're talking about here. So it's always there, and it's about a 15-minute show.
It's another exciting week in real estate.
Absolutely.
Next week, I'll have another guest.
Better than this one.
And coming up real soon, I'm still locking down the date. We will have the mayor of the county.
All right. Have at
is
it.
coming back here to this
When
studio.
she comes from Quota. Because
Exactly.
she's out of town.
Until next week, have a great week.
Take it easy, guys.